At this point, you should be familiar with the basic functions of PSICAT. PSICAT's default lists, like lithologies or features, may not be well suited to your project. That's no problem. You can modify them or create entirely new sets of descriptive elements. In PSICAT lingo, these sets are known as schemes. You can view the schemes available to the current project with the Project Choose Schemes menu item. See, we have 5 scheme items here. By default, a new project will include 1 scheme for each description type in PSICAT. Schemes can also be added and removed from a project in this dialog. Now let's look at the project folder for this PSICAT project. So there it is, Tutorial PSICAT, and as you can see it has several subfolders. The one we're interested in right now is schemes. As you can see, we have 5 scheme files in there. Each of them ends in .jar, and those correspond to what we see in this list. Next, let's look at the PSICAT application folder, which on Mac at least should be in your applications directory. So this folder, along with the PSICAT application, has a folder called resources. And that folder contains all the default CSD facility schemes included with PSICAT. So there's a .jar file for each scheme, and there's also a PDF that just shows you the contents of that scheme. So here are all the beddings available in the default bedding scheme. Here are all the soft sediment Those are all the soft sediment lithologies in the soft sediment scheme, and so on. So it's really important to understand that if you want to edit schemes, you should not be editing the schemes in the PSICAT application directory, because any changes you make to those will then not be reflected in your project. What you need to do is edit the schemes that are in your project's schemes directory or folder. Editing these will cause those changes to be reflected in your project. So that's really important to understand. Edit the schemes that are in your project folder, not the main PSICAT application folder. So let's look at editing a scheme, but first, let's close the project in PSICAT and quit PSICAT, where there might be some unexpected behavior from changing schemes. So just to be completely safe, we'll shut everything down. Schemes are created and edited in a tool called Scheme Editor, which is included with every release of PSICAT. So there's the PSICAT application, and there's Scheme Editor. So double click it to launch. Now let's open one of our project schemes, examine its contents, and make a few edits. So if we go to the File menu, just open, navigate to your Projects folder, so mine is Tutorial PSICAT, and then the Schemes subfolder of your project. And there are the schemes. I'm going to edit this Features scheme. Just click Open. And now you can see the contents of this scheme. So it has a user-facing name, has this ID, which is sort of an internal name. It has a type of features that determines what column that list will be available in. So as you can see, there's one for kind of all the basic column types. But since this is a features scheme, we want its type to be features. And then a list of all the items in that scheme. And the icon that represents it visually. So the simplest edit you could make to this scheme would be to simply remove things that you don't need, that aren't going to be of use to you in your project, and they just kind of get in the way, make the list bigger. So we could remove a few of these just by selecting them and clicking Remove Entry. Let's just remove all these items that start with C here. So that cleared things out a bit. So we'll see those are no longer present when we reopen this in our project. You can also edit the names of existing items. So I could change aragonitic to something like Aragon, or change bioturbation to bioturb, just as obvious examples here. Obviously don't make any scientific sense. You can also add an item. So I could just add entry, and we'll call it Carl. Carl will be added to the bottom of the list here. You can see it also auto-generates this code. That is generally a column you do not want to edit. You can just leave that alone and it will work just fine. So all we need to do here is give Carl an image, otherwise it'll just show up as an empty box. So if I click the set image button here, I could choose from any number of stock images, or if I have a custom image, I could click this and select it there. I will just choose this astrosoma image. There we go. Okay, so we've removed some things, we edited a few names, and we added an item. So let's call that good and save our edits. So just go to File, Save. Now, if we return to PSICAT and reopen our project, now if I look at my list of features, you can see, you should see at the top here, there we go, we've got Aragon and Bioturb are both there. And you can also see that Carl, the one we added, is there. I should just note that any existing features in your project that were aragonitic or bioturbation before have now been updated to have this label. So that affects everything that, of that type that was already in your project. And then you can see the many C items we removed from the list are no longer available in the list. So those are the basics of editing a scheme. So as you've seen, we can edit existing schemes, like this features scheme. We can also create entirely new schemes from scratch. To do that, in Scheme Editor, go to the File, New option. You'll see a new untitled scheme across the top here. First thing we should do is give this scheme a name. I'm going to create a simple lithology scheme. So we'll just call it Simple Lithology Scheme. And when I click away, this ID will be automatically filled. It's important to make sure that this ID is unique across all the schemes used in your projects. Generally it will be, so you shouldn't have to worry about this in most cases. Next we'll select a type. So we said we want a lithology scheme, so this will be available in the lithology column in PSICAT. And then we have no entries, so we need to add some. We do that by clicking Add Entry. So we'll call this lithology 1, because I'm not very creative. So again, it will automatically generate this code, which again, like the ID, is internal. You should not need to worry about this at all. I'm going to give this lithology an image. So I'm going to choose a random pattern here. And I can also assign it a color. So I'm going to choose a color from this list. I'll just choose this light blue. And then it gives me its RGB values. If I choose OK, now my background is blue. So I'm going to add another lithology. Let's call it lithology 2. Do the same process. I'll choose a different pattern. And I'm going to choose a different color. So I'll choose some kind of green. Choose that. So okay, now we have 2 lithologies, and I'm going to add one more. Lithology 3. Choose another image randomly and choose a color. And the reason this color dialog works the way it does is it tries to help you keep your colors consistent. When you're using this color chooser thing, it's often very easy to choose a color that's almost the same but not exactly the same, which is not visually ideal. So again, this just makes it easier to consistently choose colors for your lithologies. If, for example, you wanted all clays to be a certain kind of green, this is designed to facilitate that. So let's say I want to make this lithology 3 be green. I'll choose that. So as you can see, it's consistent with lithology 2. And there we go. So let's save this scheme and open it in our project. So let's go to Save. And I'm just going to save this to my desktop for now. So let's call it Simple Lithology Scheme, jar, and save it. So now, to bring this into my project, I need to return to PSICAT. So we're back in PSICAT. I'm going to open a project. And if I look at my list of lithologies right now, I haven't added this scheme to my project, so I should not see lithology 1, 2, or 3 in here, and I do not. So to add it to the project, I should close this section. Go to the project menu and go to choose schemes, and I'm going to add a scheme. Now notice I already have a lithology scheme, but the entries I entered are different. They have different names, and my scheme has a different ID than this scheme. They should be able to coexist, and all the items from both lithology schemes will just appear in the regular drop-down list. So let's see if that's really true. First, I'm going to add the scheme to my project by clicking Add Scheme and navigating to my scheme file, which there it is. Select that and click Open. It's been added to the list. Looks good so far. Now if I reopen my section, look in our lithologies list, and hopefully we will see, there we go, lithology 1, lithology 2, and lithology 3. Great. So if we change, you can see that it is using the patterns and colors that we selected. So we've created our own little additional supplemental lithology scheme and added it to our project. And now we can continue using it as usual. Scheme Editor includes a large list of stock imagery, including sort of USGS standard lithologic patterns and icons. So there's a large list there. You can use the filter field to filter things down as well. But if you want to create your own, if these aren't suitable or you're missing something you would like, you can create your own images and add them to a scheme by using the custom image button here. So I'll just briefly show. I have created an incredibly awful icon here of a terrible smiley face. I created that in GIMP. It is a PNG file, and the one thing to note is that if you want background colors to work in PSICAT, you need to have a transparent background, as this is. If my background was all white, for instance, it would always show up as white, black on white, regardless of what background color I chose in PSICAT. So you'll want the transparent background if you want the fill color to work properly. So let's just show you how that looks in PSICAT. So again, go to Select Image and then click the Custom Image button, and I will navigate to my custom feature here, select it, and click the Open button, and then you can see it's just added to the list here at the bottom and has a little custom in parentheses next to it. So now if I select this image, it will turn the pattern for my lithology 3 into my horrible pattern. And we could change the color, doesn't really matter. Choose a new one, for instance. I'll choose an awful salmon here, just to really accentuate how bad it looks. So there we go. We've added my custom icon, and now if I were to save this and return to PSICAT and open my project, reopen my project, and open the section where I used lithology 3, you can see now that it has taken on my absolutely horrific icon as the pattern. So that's how you create custom or use custom images in schemes in Scheme Editor and PSICAT. I should also point out that lithologies will always draw as a tiled pattern. You can also use this icon in a feature or a bedding column, which can be drawn as tiled or icon based. Just to demonstrate that briefly, let's open up our projects features scheme. Just here, whoops. Open that up. And let's just change Aragon to be that. So when I do set image, because we loaded a new scheme, my custom image is no longer available in this list, so I'm going to have to re-add it by going into custom image, navigating to that PNG. There it is. Should now see it in our list. There we go. As terrible as ever. And if I select this for features, it will just appear singly. So I can save this. And now if we return to PSICAT and open our project, you can see now that Aragon has changed to be my terrible icon. And currently it's in tiled mode. You could change the diagram options so that it instead draws as a single icon. And we can scale that icon, but it will not look very good. I think it is 32 by 32 pixels. If I make it larger, it's going to start to look probably not that great because it's hard to upscale. So it'll start to look increasingly pixelated as we do this, of course. But if we make it smaller, it downscales reasonably well and doesn't look quite so bad. And really the smaller the better with this terrible, terrible icon. So again, just to illustrate that you can use an icon as a pattern in a lithology or a grain size or as a sort of an icon non-tiled feature or bedding or what have you. So that's it for creating custom icons and using them in schemes.